Well, hello everyone. We're back for another podcast here with the Film Yap crew. As you can probably guess, we're doing our reactions to last night's Oscar telecast. Very exciting stuff, lots of surprises. But of course, wanted to bring you into our co-host here. Of course, I think you all know Alec Toombs. He's a very common sight here with me. Also, want to introduce our newest yapper, Reed Mathis, who's just joined us within the last month or so.
Yeah.
Reed,
Hey, everyone. I'm just glad Chris hasn't given me, the best sound treatment where my mic's already turned off by the time you got to me. So I just appreciate that.
Yeah, no, we try and keep it as a classy gig here. So, sitting the Oscars, it was things kind of went according to what we thought, and some things didn't. After the Amelia Perez collapse, it seemed kind of clear that Honora was building momentum. I was surprised by the amount of momentum that it ended up with. So looking at the count, it won the most, 5 Oscars, which is not historically a huge amount, but it was only nominated for 6 categories. So winning 5 out of 6, pretty good batting average. But Brutalist won 3, Dune 2, Amelia Perez 2, Wicked 2, and then a whole bunch with just 1, Conclave, Flow, I'm Still Here, No Other Land, Real Pain, and The Substance. So I guess, Alec, why don't we throw it to you first? First impressions, obviously there were some big surprises, but what were your first?
What would you consider the big surprises of the evening? I'm curious.
The two being that Demi Moore, everyone thought was really a lock for Best Actress. I mean, I don't
Right.
think Mikey Madison had won any of the preliminary awards.
She won some.
Well, like critics groups, as a member of
BAFTA.
a couple of critics groups, I don't, those are awards, but they're not SAG Awards, Directors Guild Awards, God forbid me, Golden, what are the Golden Globes?
Yeah,
Right.
best musical or comedy performance, which
Yeah.
Demi Moore won. So there have been
Well,
precedent,
that's a good
before.
point. But and then of course, I think it was between Adrian Brody and Timothy Chalamet for actor.
I
So
would
that
agree
one
with
not
that.
as huge. That was probably like one of those was probably like a 60-40 split. So 40% chance for Brody, and he won. I didn't see Mikey winning at all. But I
I
know
figured the
fans were okay.
best actress race was a 2-woman race between Demi and Mikey Madison. And like you were saying, best actor seemed like a 2-actor race between Timothy Chalamet and Adrian Brody. Um, I was really happy with how Honora did. It was my third favorite movie of last year. It is awesome, to me at least, that Sean Baker made history being the first person to win 4 Oscars for one movie in one night.
Yeah,
Yep.
tying Walt Disney for most Oscars in one year. Although in his case, it was for multiple different films.
Right.
72 years. Yep. Four awards, 4 different films back then for him.
Amazing. Now, Reed, how about you? Just first reactions. What was your takeaway from the night?
Yeah, I mean, even though the telecast lasted about 3 hours 40 minutes, I thought it breezed past. I mean, Conan, as I suspected, did an excellent job. I thought that opening monologue, first hour of the show, honestly, perfect. Like, wouldn't have changed a thing. The musical performances, the surprise speeches, especially from winners from Flow, first Oscar for Latvia, and then for Wicked, the costume designer, first one for a black costume designer. So moments like that, some of those jabs thrown in there, thought it was perfect. I know for me, like Alec with Honora, I was huge on Dune Part Two. It was one of my favorite films of the year. I knew it had no chance, at this point in the race, the award race. But seeing it still take home 2 Oscars, it doesn't sound like a lot, but definitely let out a sizable oh, okay, we're actually doing this. Because like A Complete Unknown, which walked away 0 for 8, I thought Dune was going to walk away 0 for 5. So I was happy to see Dune at least recognized for something. I wish we would have saved that a little bit for Denny, but maybe his time is coming. And then, like Alex said, Mikey Madison, she was my favorite performance, I think, bar none, of the entire year of what the performances I saw. And I was fully expecting Demi Moore. I'm sure she had a beautiful speech like she has for all the precursors. She looked absolutely fantastic, as you would expect. So I was ready for it. So Adrian Brody won. I was like, okay, like we kind of just got to, go 5 awards, left 4 awards. But then when Mikey won, I was like, what? Let's go. Nora was my I think it was the best movie I saw out of the films I saw from 2024 so far. So those two moments were definitely helped me peek up to the TV screen a little bit, pay a little bit more attention. So I was happy to see some of those things throughout the show.
Did
Now,
either of you notice that Brady Corbet looked really pissed off by the end of Adrian Brody's speech? I don't know if he was annoyed with the speech. I was kind of annoyed with the speech. It was like the longest Oscar speech of all time. He had a lot of good things to say, but it was just wrap it up, brother. I
yeah,
couldn't tell if Corbet was annoyed at him or if he was just nervous because his category was coming up for director.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean, I don't think he thought he really had a shot as a fairly newish director, but yeah, I don't know. I tweeted for those who were following on the Film Yap where we were live tweeting the event. I said when you win two Oscars, you can tell them cut off the walkway music because I'm staying here and there's nothing you're going to do about it. And I guess if when you reach three Oscar wins, they don't even start playing the walk-off music because they're like, "Hey, have as much as time as you want." I don't know. In terms of longest, I led to see some numbers. I bet you Matthew McConaughey's when he won it was pretty well up there.
I think I
Uh,
saw somewhere that Brody's speech was the longest in Oscar
it
history
was almost
also.
like three speeches. It's like he gave the
I believe it.
speech, then they started to cut him off. He said, "No, I'm going to do this," and then he did the one at the end. I thought it was pretty eloquent. I liked it. It was a very sort of like nonpartisan call for speech and not hate and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was pretty good speech overall, even though he probably could have snipped it up a little earlier. I know Mikey Madison did not expect to win because I don't know if you saw that when she started to go up and she had to actually go to I guess somebody who came with her who dug into his pocket for a crumpled up speech that
Mhm.
he handed to her, which she then read from, which tells me that she basically said they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win." It's like, well, put something down and I'll put it in my pocket for you just in case. And that's what
Might
happened.
have been her twin brother
Yeah.
that she was
I
at the awards with.
I just like Sean Baker's reaction. I mean, I was happy that he was able to, share the wealth a little bit. He jumped out of his seat. So she was definitely surprised. That whole, because obviously all of them sitting right next to each other, everyone popped up and Mikey's just sitting there like, it's really happening, isn't it? She's
Yeah.
25 years old. I mean, like, as someone who's about to turn 25, I just couldn't imagine like going that entire like award season, getting some wins here and there, getting the recognition she deserved. But this kind of being her first major. This is her breakout film, and it ended up resulting in a Best Actress win. So definitely, that must have been like the longest 3.5 hours of her life, and then like the longest 10 seconds when she was
Yeah.
announced as the winner.
Demi
Yeah.
Demi Moore definitely looked surprised when she
Mhm.
lost. I think she mouthed like nice
She
or
Yeah.
looked
something.
over a little bit to the person sitting next to her, like, "Oh,
There's
Yeah.
been
I
a lot of
mean,
heat thrown at the awards, like saying that Sue won and Elizabeth didn't, referencing the substance.
yeah.
Uh, Honestly, I think Honora's a better movie, and I thought Mikey Madison gave a better performance, but that's just my 2 cents.
I
Yeah.
agree." Both
I
points.
have reservations about both the Nora and the Substance, which I've put in my my review of Substance, and we've had that ongoing discussion, Alex, since you were you were right out of the gate. You were early a Nora stan. Yeah, I can't remember if in your initial review you actually even just said this is one of the best movies of the year, but you were very enthusiastic about it from the start. So I won't belabor that other than like with the Substance, I thought it just conceptually it was a whole lot of little bit of a shuttle game there of we're gonna make a movie that's about the objectification of women, and we were gonna just put a shit ton of objectification of women in it to prove our point, I guess.
So it
Um,
was directed by a woman.
yeah, I will. As I put, I think in my predictions piece, if it was a dude directing the Substance, everyone would be complaining about why so much nudity, why so much nudity. But she's making a statement. And Nora,
I
I
don't know.
just
I'd be curious to see David Cronenberg's The Substance or Paul Verhoeven's The Substance. I think it'd be fascinating. But
yeah,
Shout.
Cronenberg in particular, obviously like the king of body horror. And Honora, as I said, I won't belabor it other than just I just did not connect emotionally to those characters. But I am curious about the new thing now. I guess this is the quasi politically adjacent thing that's going on with that is let's give it up for sex workers. Let's respect sex workers. And I'm significantly older than a bit older than Alec, significantly older than Reed. And I guess I'm just gonna have to go back to my old fogey upbringing of yeah, prostitution, sex work, whatever nice words we want to call it. Not a good thing. Not a good thing for the people being exploited by it. Not a good thing, but for the people who are making use of those services instead of engaging in real relationships. Not a good thing, I think, for our community as a whole. But that may just be my age and upbringing speaking. So, what was your guys' reaction to like, hey, let's give it up for sex workers?
I know for me, like two takeaways. Like obviously for Sean Baker, this is not a one-off for him. I mean, you see it in Starlet back all the way in 2020,
Tangerine.
2012, Tangerine, Red Rocket, the Florida Project. I mean, he's been building up to this, and I know there's many people out there who like or prefer some of his earlier movies even before this, but it was very clear to see this was kind of a crescendo moment. This is the film. He's finally, made it. He has the performances, he just has the story. It's all like meshed together. And it won at Cannes. So it's not like it had been there from the beginning. So that was like one. And then on like the point that you brought up, I mean, the sex worker industry, that's been around for,
One of the
thousands.
oldest professions in the world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's part of the human experience. I mean, it's not the only movie that had it too. I mean, The Brutalists towards the beginning also had some moments of like Adrian Brody's character going to a brothel. So it's not like a foreign concept. I know for us, it's like something obviously you don't want to start off a conversation at a dinner party about, but I think it's a central human experience. It's a very good, I think, tool to show the different like human vulnerabilities and ways to, add a little piece of the meat to like characters while they're on screen as well. Again, I think for Sean, I think he balanced it very well. There's the glamour. There's like, you can have the fun soundtrack of it all. But then with the Nora, and again, no spoilers here, but the ending of Nora, you kind of see the ebbs and flows, what it looks like when it's, most glamorous, when you have the flight, you have the jet going off to Vegas for the wedding, but then at the end where, you're crying in the car. So, I thought it was done in a like pretty eloquent way. And it's very important. I mean, it's not new to Hollywood either. And we've seen many, many variations of it. So there's something there that's obviously speaking to audiences, speaking to creators, and people who are just innovating and telling it in mostly, the same, but also new ways.
Alec,
Oh, do you want me to touch upon the sex work stuff?
go
I'm
ahead.
not trying. I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum. What happens between two consenting adults is really none of my business. I hope if people are engaging in sex work, they're doing so safely, and they're doing it as an expression of their own sexuality. That they're not being exploited or put into situations they don't want to be in.
Yeah. I'll just put the coda on that of, like looking at Honora as a piece of work, I guess maybe one of the reasons I didn't connect to it is just because, this character of Mikey Madison, you know, she clearly is not about having emotionality into what she does. It's for money. And then she sees this opportunity, which, she doesn't really pursue. It's kind of given to her, but then she, at some point, it's like, yeah, I'm going to grab this thing with both hands if I can get this opportunity. And at some point, clearly finds her emotions do coming in and being invested. So I respect them humanizing sex workers as a piece of narrative fiction in terms of the real world of let's say that prostitution is a good thing. You're not going to get me over there. But one of the things that's beautiful about movies and that I love about movies is that they can present stories and communities that are very foreign to me, possibly even offensive to me, and I disagree with them. But I can still see these characters as human beings and empathize with them. And that's just the power of cinema.
I have one quick caveat with something you wrote in your piece where you referred to, I think it's the actor is Yura Borislav, the supporting actor. You referred to his character as a thug, and he is to an extent, but he also is very soft and kind and caring. Uh, I thought his performance in the movie was excellent. I know he didn't
Yeah.
win.
All right.
I know Kieran Culkin won. I would have probably preferred Edward Norton or Borislav in that category.
All right.
Same.
I'm going to embarrass myself by admitting something, which is, and I'm going to sound really bad here, but hey, full transparency is
Yeah.
I was confused about which actor was nominated for Nora. I
Okay,
thought it was the husband character, not the bodyguard character.
gotcha.
And I even put that in my thing, referring to him as a jerk thug. I don't know if you saw. Once I realized that, and I only realized it when they showed the pictures of the nominees, and I was like, I kind of made a bit of an error there. I actually changed it in the article and took that reference.
Okay, I didn't see,
So
didn't catch that.
full. I am correcting myself in real time.
I guess I like I love the nomination, and in this case, like it reminds me of like what I prefer in award season because there's only so many spots, there's only so many opportunities, highlight people's work in different movies. So like I prefer, Borisov being that like figure of what represented like a truly sensational supporting cast around Mikey. That's what I saw him more as. He was like, this is not only an awesome performance from him, but kind of representing that whole supporting cast rather than the alternative where you have like two or three people from the same movie being nominated in the same category. I mean, there's obviously some instances in Oscar history where that's warranted, but more times than not, I'm sure we can all agree that that's not always the case. It's like, wow, this movie was great. Oh my God, that person was in it. All right, there you go. So I like this way of doing it, like where you're just giving more shine, more like, oh yeah, he was, oh yeah, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in that movie. Yeah. Where in the past, or more commonly, that would go to someone, like you already know, or that's like their 11th most recognizable movie or whatever. So for me, that was more the takeaway, like seeing, Borisov representing a Nora there.
Yeah.
I think I was calling him Borislav. Sorry.
All right, but not as bad a mistake as mine of when I got the completely wrong guy in there. Look, turning to my prognostications, I always like to grade myself. I did really bad this year because it was a year that was kind of hard to predict. The awards were more spread around. It's easier when there's like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King year, where it's just where everything's going.
Or Titanic or something.
Yeah. So I got 10 out of 23 categories right, which is really below. I've seen the average about 16 to 17, 18 is kind of about my average. So I really did poor there. I will say, of those I got wrong, 4 of them were ones where the film I wanted to win won. And those were animated feature. I was over the moon about Flow winning. I've been advocating for that movie since day one. I mean, it's a Latvian movie that they made with open source software, for God's sake. Probably literally had like 1/150th of the budget of Inside Out 2. So that one I was really happy about. Original score for Brutalist, I didn't think that would win because it's kind of atypical. Original song for El Mal, so Emilia Perez does still come out with 2 wins. Animated short.
That was the best song in that movie, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Shadow of the Cypress was my favorite for animated short. And what was the other one? I had one other one on here that I'm guessing, but I think there was 4 total where the movie I wanted to win. So that's always good. Some other of the quote unquote lesser categories, I don't consider them that like cinematography, I think should be counted one of the major awards. I was really hoping and rooting for Nosferatu, the Brutalist one, but I was okay with that. Wicked for production design and costumes kind of seemed like it had to happen. I will say the editing award for Anora was a head scratcher for me, just because, I mean, typically those go to films that like very intricate things going on, action films where there's a lot of action editing that's hard to do, or Wicked, musicals where there's lots of going like that. I don't know. I mean, was there anything really stand out about the editing of Onora? That's one where I would probably push back.
I would maybe make the argument they were awarding Sean Baker as the author of that film, and the editing was part of his authorship.
I think you're probably right, and then it probably is an example of like, oh, that's our favorite movie, so I'm just going to vote for everything for that in that category that it's up for, whether or not it actually had the best editing of all. Makeup and hairstyling, I thought it would be Wicked. It was the substance. I've been going back and forth. To me, there was a lot of FX in that film, but like from what people have been discussing, they're saying there was a lot more practical effects in there than what I thought.
It needed to be the substance. Alyssa
Yeah,
Sue is way more impressive than making Cynthia Erivo green. Sorry.
I agree. And they showed some of the, behind the scenes of it during the telecast, if I remember correctly.
Right, and I hadn't seen that stuff, so kind of seeing that, I was like, oh wow, there really was a lot of work that went into this, and it wasn't CGI'd up.
I know for Alec being a big horror guy, like seeing something like The Substance, which might not be like, your quote unquote like body gory like horror at all moments, like that has to be like pretty like
I'm super
fantastic to see.
desensitized, and that movie messed me up. Like when her
Yeah.
knee explodes, like on the sidewalk, I was grossed out.
I was like
So
one of three people in my theater, and I just like when that I'm like looking around to the other people, and the other people in the theater are looking around as well, like what just happened? Like there's
Yeah,
like three moments in that movie where I'm like, what?
yeah.
So now I was happy to say they won that. Going back to your scorecard, mine ended very early. I thought Wild Robot, Chris Sanders being a titan of that industry, Wild Robot, a movie I liked a lot. Not one of my favorites of the year, but kind of maybe a tier, two tiers below it. I really enjoyed it. For me, it was about. I'm really. I like both a lot. So for me, I didn't really have a like horse in the race on that one. And then Nick Offerman being on PA, that was not something I thought I
Yeah.
was going to
It
hear.
took,
So I
it
was
took me
happy.
about 10 or 15 minutes into the broadcast to be like, is that Nick Offerman? Because they
Yeah,
didn't announce him first. Some of the other ones, I was surprised by a Nora winning screenplay just because it's very common with the Oscars where, like, if I'm going to pronounce her name correct, Corley Fargeau for The Substance, where they will use like, if we know, okay, Sean Baker's going to win Best Director and he's going to win Best Picture. So, but we really want to honor this person. They will use the screenplay categories as sort of like a makeup. Like, oh, we'll throw you to. So I predicted that she would win this original screenplay award.
they also tend to do that for edgier works. Like that's where Tarantino tends to get a lot of his awards.
Yeah, exactly. Adapted screenplay went to Conclave. I predicted that, and I was very happy with that. Very hard to have all those characters and little plot lines and balance them all and sync up together. So that was a very
That's
well done.
where I would have liked to have seen a complete unknown in that category myself. I thought that script was great.
Yeah, I'm still
hey,
here. I predicted that correctly for international feature. I kind of obviously it was Amelia Perez was the front runner there until it was not anymore. And then I figured Flo would, if it had a chance, it would be an animated, not in that. So was very pleased with that one. Documentary feature. I was not a big fan of No Other Land. It was a great topic, great perspective. Obviously, very one-sided. Just as a piece of cinema, I didn't think it was a great documentary. I don't like process documentaries where it's like we're gonna have a whole bunch of what I would consider fill in and fluff in between the actual meat. So it's like they would have things like here come the Israeli tanks and they're gonna knock down those houses, and then they'll have like 45 seconds of the guy running with his camcorder, and so we see shots of the ground going like this as he's running, and I'm like, I don't need to see that. Cut that out.
Did you catch Sam Jackson laughing in the background when the guy
Yeah,
called out?
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
Sam Jackson laughing was hilarious.
pretty
yeah.
awkward. Yeah, pretty awkward. Like him and Selena during that whole speech. I couldn't help but keep looking like over to the left. I was like, what are they like talking
I
about?
think
What's
Sam was pretty much like, "Damn, he just went
Yeah.
there."
I had the same
yeah.
problem with Sugarcane in the documentary feature like literally that could have been a documentary short, like a 35, 40-minute short. And it just had all this filler, to me, filler. And it's like, you've got a powerful subject. Do better with it. Let's turn to one of the backlash things I'm hearing a little bit today is, okay, so we gave the award a $6 million film, which allowing for changes in inflation, still is probably one of the lowest budgeted Best Picture winners of all time. But the backlash now is, well, they're giving it to these tiny films that nobody saw. They made an Aura for $6 million. I think it grossed about $40 million, which obviously made money, but still that means not a lot of people actually saw it. So people are saying, why do they keep giving it to movies lately like Coda and this? I mean, I like the idea of the little movie that could, but it's a complaint of like, here, if you want to know why people are not paying as much attention to the Oscars, aren't watching the telecast, it's because they keep giving them to these smaller movies that people haven't seen. And in general, I kind of reject that criticism, but someone brought this up today of
Have you seen what the ratings look like for the show last night?
I have not seen them yet. It
Okay,
usually takes at
yeah.
least a day, so but probably coming out pretty soon.
I would guess they were probably low.
Yeah, my guess is they were probably low too. But so someone on Twitter posted this. Like, here's a comparison point of uh the best picture winners from the 1990s. So here's all the best picture winners for the 1990s in order: The Silence of the Lambs, Braveheart, Unforgiven, The English Patient, Schindler's List, Dances with Wolves, Forrest Gump, American Beauty, Titanic, and Shakespeare in Love. Now that I look at it, I don't think they're actually in
They're not in order.
order. But the point is, all right, every single one of those, a mainstream movie that did very well at the box office that people saw. And I personally like rewarding movies that are the most worthy, whether they made $40 million or $400 million. But it's a legitimate criticism of, like, it's one of those things. It's like, don't ask why people are not paying as much attention to the Oscars if you're giving the awards out to movies that most people haven't seen.
Well, do you know Honora? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Reed.
I was going to go on a longer point, so if you want to.
No.
I could do this quick. Honora is going to be on Hulu soon. I saw a commercial for it during the telecast. I know it's also going to be available on the Criterion Collection, I think, in April. People who haven't seen the movie yet are probably going to be prompted to see the movie by it winning Best Picture.
Yep.
And I do think it's a movie we're seeing. I am curious to see where Sean Baker's career goes from here. If he still keeps hanging out in the indie world, or if he goes and makes a $50 or $100 million movie after.
Is he going to go the Greta Gerwig route and make a huge blockbuster?
All the leverage is in his court. I mean, like we said at the beginning, no one else can say they won 4 Oscars in one night in the modern day. Like, he's kind of done it. He's proven what he can do with the material, with like resources he's had. So for him, it's pretty much dealer's choice, I think.
Okay, Reed, go ahead. Take us out with your point that you want to make.
Yeah. So, like, big caveat, like, obviously I'm not a 90s baby, so I cannot speak to it directly, but 90s, I would say, is like seen as one of the better decades of movie in general, like in American film history. One, also those movies, you have Spielberg in there, you have Cameron, you have Sam Mendes. I mean, you already have like a lot of these, Kevin Costner, you have a lot of these established actors, directors being in there, which, I mean, them winning Best Picture obviously helps. I will say, like, looking at the past 5 years, I mean, you look at Nomadland and Coda, they both won 3 Oscars the years they won Best Picture. That's also during the pandemic. So I think a little unfair to, like, compared to, how many people saw it at the time. That was a very odd time for the industry. We're still kind of feeling those effects now. And when it comes to these small indie films, it's not new to be awarding these films that maybe didn't gross $1 billion, like we saw last year with Oppenheimer, winning 7 awards. We also had like Barbie last year as well, like these big hitters, but also critically acclaimed as well. It's not that new, at least in my experience from what I've seen and obviously look back on. And you got to look at like Parasite as well. Before it became the darling that it was, and the same with Everything Everywhere All at Once. These are either new, or you have Bong Joon-ho, who is someone who, like, everyone in the industry already knew and was like, yeah, he's like a master at the work, but he finally, made something that like crossed over into the mainstream. And look what happened. Most celebrated movie in a year in 2019 where you had all timers from other filmmakers. So, no, it's just
quick time out.
Yeah.
Both Honora and Parasite were released by Neon. It seems like they're becoming a huge player on the scene.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right. Yeah, nothing new, but always love to see like it being celebrated. And in this like kind of battle that we're having with, continuing to pour resources into IP compared to, smaller indie films that are now continuing to struggle with getting people who are funding it, financing it, and releasing it to mass audiences. You can't really fault the creators, I guess, in that part. That's more, higher up the ladder. But it's just a nice reminder that, film creativity, the beauty of filmmaking is found in a $60 million movie and a $6 million movie. So,
all right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, Reed. Thanks, Alex, for joining us. And I will just take us out with one last thing, is echoing Sean Baker. Do go see movies in movie theaters. It is the first best way to see movies. Not knocking streaming, I stream, but support your local movie theater, not just as a great, as a public accommodation, but just as the best way to see movies. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You.